The middleweight fight of the century has finally arrived to Star Citizen. Welcome in everyone, and today we are comparing the most popular entry-level, mid-sized ships in the game to see which is truly going to come out on top. I'm talking about, of course, the Cutlass series, the Freelancer series, the Spirit series, and the newest competitor into this arena, the Zeus series. To pit these daily drivers against each other, we're going to need some categories to rate them in and a scale. Combat seems to be a solid place to start. Cargo capability, overall utility, or you could say versatility, flight performance, this will include components, last but certainly not least, style. I think that's a solid 5 fields to judge them on. We will need to do this on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being absolutely awful and 10 being an absolute hit. To start this off, we will go with the longtime crowd favorite and staple across the verse, the Cutlass. Specifically, the Cutlass Black. I chose the Cutlass Black for this as it contains the most versatility among its 4-ship lineup. As Drake's standout ship in this field, it certainly does not miss when it comes to firepower. Sporting an impressive arsenal of 4 size 3 weapon hardpoints controlled by the pilot, with 2 separate missile racks, a set of 8 size 2 missiles, and another set of 8 size 3 missiles, coupled with a top-mounted turret equipped with another set of size 3 guns. This thing is no pushover. Packing this amount of firepower on a ship this size has certainly earned it a respectable 9 in combat. That leads us into performance. Underneath those weapons is a hull a little under 46,000 hit points, shrouded by just 1 size 2 shield generator. The Cutlass manages to have all size 2 components, however it only has double coolers and single everything else. It makes great use of those large thrusters by achieving its typical SCM speeds in a little under 4 seconds. It handles similarly to that of a medium fighter, which is pretty surprising given its size. All in all, not the most impressive lineup of components. I think this has to land around a 5 out of 10 for performance. Next, we will talk cargo. It holds a measly 46 SCU of cargo and is just big enough to hold a standard rock, but just barely. With the lack of a tractor beam on the back of the ship, it is not the most cargo-friendly vessel. I think this will have to hit around a 4 out of 10 here. Versatility, though, is something this ship certainly is not lacking, managing to provide at least an entry-level start into seemingly every major gameplay loop except salvage. It's hard to argue that this does not fall into a respectable 7 here. Style is up for debate. The inside is very much built for combat and not too much else. This ship is a bit of a dinosaur in the game and could use a new variant to really bring it into the light. The inside feels a bit spacious when it's empty and functional in its layout. Nonetheless, it is easily one of the most recognizable ships in the game, and you'll find it in most every major trailer you see. Even so, I have to give this a 6 just for its clunky exterior mixed with the militaristic interior that leaves a lot to be desired. Next on our list is the MISC entry into our competition. By popular opinion, probably one of the least desirable ships in the game, and certainly on this list, the Freelancer series. To give this old girl somewhat of a fighting chance, I'm going to pick the Freelancer MAX for this lineup. The performance of this ship is surprisingly better than the Cutlass in some ways, sporting all size 2 components except it holds 2 in every slot except for shields where it actually holds 3. That is 3 times more than the Cutlass. However, it will need it for how big of a target it is. It also only has a little over 31,000 hit points, which is 25% less than the previous ship. While it handles a bit worse than the Cutlass, it provides much more on hardware, landing us at a 6 for performance. Combat is certainly where the Freelancer struggles a bit. The pilot has access to 2 missile racks with 4 size 2 missiles and 4 size 3 missiles. I know. It does have 3 turret hardpoints, dual size 2 weapons on the sides, and a dual size 3 turret on the rear of the ship. A solo player can fire the 2 side turrets from the pilot's seat even without other players, allowing for a decent amount of offense. I slot this at a strong 5 only because fully crewed this could be a potential threat. However, it's still quite a large target and clunky to fly. Cargo is really where we can see this ship shine some. Coming in at a whopping 120 SCU capacity for cargo, I think this is a solid area for an entry-level ship, enabling the potential to actually make decent money in the game, and also has a rear ramp large enough to allow the crowd favorite Ursa medevac to fit. This has to be a 9 out of 10 in the cargo field for me. Utility could be an argument depending on who you ask. It certainly has a solid path into cargo gameplay and mining with the rock. It does possess some combat ability, although much more effective if fully crewed. I think having the option to place a Ursa medevac in the cargo bay really elevates this to an 8 out of 10. Lastly, we will talk style. This thing is almost as much of a relic as the Cutlass series is, and as such is not the prettiest ship to look at. Very chonky in its design, with similar big thrusters, bigger isn't always better. I think its appearance honestly is where a lot of players lose appeal for this ship. The inside is dated and just feels like a large tube with wings. The living quarters, if you could call it that, seems like an afterthought at best. For those reasons, I think this sits at a 3. The third competitor here has become quite popular since its unveiling at IAE 2953. Hailing from the mighty Crusader cargo empire, we're talking of course the Spirit series, and representing them will be the C1. The little brother to the C2, this ship is not short in the style department. Designed gracefully, much like other ships from Crusader, many have loved the look of this ship. It has the trademark large engines, but in an elegant way that only Crusader can provide. I'm kinda noticing a theme here with SIG seems to like adding these large engines onto medium ships. The interior is spacious and clean in the back, and it has the same Crusader style doors that you see on the larger variants. The crew area is a bit confusing as it all kind of feels shoved behind the seats. I find this surprising given it's such a large airframe. All in all, the space is still well designed, albeit smaller than expected. Coupled with the sleek exterior, I would land this at a respectable 8 out of 10 for style. For flight performance, it does quite well. Large wings provide good control, and the gigantic engines that they house also enable great acceleration. Despite its larger frame, the fact that it is a newer release, it still only carries single size 2 components in every slot. At least the hit points come in at an impressive 67,000, which is the highest we've seen so far. While this does fly well, its overall performance leaves a lot to be desired, landing this at a strong 6. Now, cargo capability. Holding a decent 64 SCU of cargo, which can be 32 SCU containers, is not too bad. This provides an entry point into the cargo loop and with a tractor beam mounted on rails to assist with loading. Admittedly, it is kinda awkwardly placed, probably sounded a lot better in concept than execution. Nonetheless, it does enable a solo player to effectively carry out cargo missions of any size. Given its smaller capacity though, it will have to land at a 6 out of 10 just because it doesn't have any room to grow. Now let's jump over to combat. The hit points are great, but a single size 2 shield really hinders its ability to go toe-to-toe with other similarly classed ships. Even against the Cutlass, it will be outgunned despite having the health advantage. It does have 4 pilot-controlled size 3 hardpoints, which isn't too bad, although an armament of just 4 size 3 missiles is a huge bummer. Built more for style than combat, this will have to fall at around a 4 on the scale. The versatility of this ship is pretty alright. Being large enough to hold 32 SCU containers gives us some flexibility in missions and cargo runs. It is large enough to sport a rock inside the rear, and a skilled pilot could even take this far in bounty hunting. Capable of anything, but great at nothing, I think this is a 7 in this department. Wrapping up this matchup is the newest addition to the verse and highly anticipated across the community, hailing in from the flagship manufacturer of the game, the RSI Zeus. With 2 variants of the 3 currently available, we will use the CL version for this lineup. Without a doubt, the strongest cargo ship in this lineup, capable of carrying an impressive 128 SCU. A side note to that is it will not fit 32 SCU containers. It does have a nifty tractor beam that hides away when it's not in use, although it's not the most user-friendly at times. The ramp is large enough to allow a rock to enter, and even though the cargo hold is large enough to support an Ursa, the opening is not large enough to allow it to enter. All things considered, I think this sits at a 9 out of 10 for cargo. Style, much like the C1, is a place this ship shines. Elegantly designed and so much attention to detail taken into consideration, this ship is stunning. The first ship to actually have reasonably sized engines here, and they look pretty unique and cool as well. The interior makes use of every inch of space in a way that feels complete and practical. Unlike the C1, the Zeus even has a crew quarters and a kitchen area, which will make this much more functional in later patches, I'm sure. This might be the first 10 out of 10 as I cannot find much wrong with the style of this ship. Now, before you go thinking I'm super biased and I'm just in love with RSI ships, I mean, I am. But hear me out, it does really struggle in combat. The Zeus only has minimal amount of offensive ability. It continues the theme of 4 weapon hardpoints, 2 size 3 weapons on the turret controlled by the co-pilot, and 2 size 4 for the pilot. This is a huge hit to DPS without another player. It does have 8 size 2 missiles, which is decent. It even has an impressive 3 size 2 shield generators, but only 24,000 HP. Making it the most vulnerable ship here once you've cracked the shields. That being said, coupled with the serious lack of weaponry, for a solo player this lands at a 2 for combat just because even another player would only make it on par with the other ships on this list. This is a good segue into flight performance. Honestly, it flies really smoothly. It does not have the high giddy-up that the previous ships have given its smaller engines. It fits all size 2 components and has a significant advantage over all the other ships here It can take 2 of every slot and even has 3 shield generators. This redundancy has its advantage, although those shields feel necessary with the low hull HP. That one fact aside, this ship performs exceptionally and is a solid 7. Lastly is this ship's utility. It is capable of some combat ability, although you might feel limited in later bounty hunting levels. The cargo grid is large, although a bit restrictive to some hauling with the lack of 32 SU containers being able to fit. Otherwise, an impressive capacity. The ability to fit a rock goes without saying at this point. This does fit many gameplay loops, and with a skilled pilot could make it most of the way down the bounty hunting pipeline. Doing it all in a sleek RSI style is all the more better. Utility lands at around a 6. To wrap this up guys, I also want to show the pricing of all these ships as they're all different. This paints an interesting picture as all these ships feel very close in some of their abilities, and yet there's such a wide price difference for some of them. One could argue value here, but I want to let you guys decide and just let everyone know in the comments what you think the better deal is from what you've flown. For me, the Zeus takes the win here. If the C1 utilized space a bit better, maybe I would like that more, but the Zeus seems to just hit every category for me despite the price when it comes to daily drivers. Thank you guys so much for watching, best of luck with your adventures in the verse, and I'll see you all in the next one.